Hello, brothers, sisters, and friends, and welcome to this special edition of the Fight Like Hell podcast. This is a day two recap of our national rap session in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm your host, Ed Morgan, and with us, as always, is our national president, Brian Renfro. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hey, Eddie, I'm doing good. Excited. We had a great weekend.
Yeah, we did. We got to convene with branch presidents in Cleveland, Ohio, and about 1,500 people in attendance. Really good time there. We have a few guests here on the episode today, and I'm going to go through and introduce them. First, we have Kelli Robles from branch 5996, Centennial, Colorado. Next, we have Amy Lee Cole from branch 319, East St. Louis, Illinois. We have Tony Vaughn from Oriole branch 176 in Baltimore, Maryland, and Chuck Walls from branch 5. And Larissa Party told me that that's the best branch in Nebraska. He's from Omaha, Nebraska. So, hey, Larissa, if you're listening. I'm going to ask each of you to give a brief description of who you are and just tell us a little bit about your branch. So, Kelli, could you start us off?
Hi, I'm Kelli, and I'm from Aurora, Colorado, which is one of the three cities that the Centennial branch covers. We cover Aurora, Inglewood, and Littleton. We roughly have about 645 active members. We have total of about almost just over 1,000, including retirees.
That's great. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you.
Thanks for
Amy,
having me.
Amy, could you just tell us about your branch?
Well, as you said, I'm Amy Lee Cole. I am president of Branch 319 in East St. Louis. That's in Southern Illinois. I feel like a small fish. I only have 72 members. We are 100% organized, though. I also have 16 carriers who work out of an adjacent office in Belleville that carry Fairview Heights. So, thank you.
Yeah, terrific. And there's no such thing as a small branch, right? We're all out there protecting our letter K.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah. All right, Tony, can you just tell us about Oriole branch?
Yes, I'm Tony Vaughn, President of Oriole Branch 176. We have a large branch. Our branch is approximately about 2,700 members. And those of you who've been out to the Maritime Institute, where our office is basically minutes away from the Maritime Institute.
Okay. Thanks for coming on. Chuck, let's talk about Omaha.
Hi, my name's Chuck Walls. I'm the branch president of Branch 5 here in Omaha. Larissa was correct. No, I'm just kidding. We are a branch that has about 450 active members and about 250 retirees. So we're a medium-sized branch. I love the fact that we're Branch 5. That means we've been around for a very long time, and it's a very proud history that we have here in Omaha.
Thank you. So before we get into the day two recap, I just wanted to take you guys back to Saturday, day one of the national rap session. And I just want to get your thoughts on the workshops. What did you guys think of the workshops compared to previous rap sessions that you've been a part of? Amy, do you want to lead us off?
Sure. That was very good. Actually, I don't know who came up with the idea, but that was very, very good compared to the one in New Orleans, which we didn't get very much out of. The fact that they've broken down each article in the contract and, listen to what we actually had to say was very good, I think.
Good. Kelli, your opinion about Saturday?
I really enjoyed the forum and how the subcommittees showed exactly what they're working on towards the contract. New Orleans was definitely, I liked the classes, but I did like how this one was set up to where we actually could see what was going on behind the scenes.
Tony, your opinion about Saturday?
Yes, I really enjoyed, and it was very informative. All the executive officers were very informed, detailed, and knowledgeable, and I did like the setup and approach. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we won't leave Chuck out. Chuck, what do you think?
Well, I have been to several rap sessions, and I have to agree with everyone else that the information that we received, the timeliness of everything with us getting ready to go into contract negotiations and hearing exactly what's been going on. It was extremely informative. And then getting the feedback from all the carriers was fantastic. I had really enjoyed it.
Okay. Chuck, while we got you here, just want to talk about, so the executive council, we talked about this on the previous podcast. We talked about the executive council giving their presentations, but then the second part of those workshops were the discussions between the branch presidents sharing their ideas and opinions and the executive council. Can you talk about that experience?
Well, I think that really was one of the best parts is to hear some ideas from the rank and file carriers that I was watching. They were taking notes, they were taking it in. There was an open discussion about everything. To me, I think that was the one thing that I enjoyed the most was not only hearing from the national officers and seeing how in depth everything is with what they're doing, but then taking what some of the rank and file carriers had to say, and there were some pretty good ideas in there. So, I mean, I think it was a great forum. It worked out really well. I think I got more out of this rap session than I probably have any of the others I've been to.
Hmm. Amy, I see you shaking your head. Can you just talk about your opinion about that discussion period?
Yeah, I totally agree with what he just said. The fact that I actually observed some of the councilmen actually taking notes after we were at the mic or whatever, that they actually may have listened to us. And that was very important to me. And I think to just about every other person that I was sitting around to actually see them interacting with how we felt about it. And I think that was huge.
I think you're a mind reader because that was my next question. So I'm going to ask Kelli
Oh,
this
I'm
one.
sorry.
No, of course. No, I appreciate you getting on. But Kelli, do you think that the attendees were heard by that executive council when they were talking?
Oh, absolutely. They were I mean, they paid attention like Chuck was saying, they took notes, and we'd have an open communication. It wasn't just us going up and talking and them saying, okay. It was a very informative, and you could definitely tell that the national officers were paying attention and taking notes.
And then Tony, what did you think about that discussion period?
I thought it was very informative, and I felt it was really a fact-based discussion, give and take, and they were taking our feedback. Even had the opportunity to speak to some of the subcommittee members after a session in it. So I did feel like it was a positive give and take feedback, not just I'm telling you, just listen. Thank you.
For our listeners, you've heard the perspective on the podcast that we put out Saturday night about day one from those three branch presidents. Now you've heard from other branch presidents. I just wanted to briefly share what I have heard from the other executive council members that participated in those workshops on Saturday on day one. So, they were really dual purpose. Number one, for the council members that have been working in these bargaining subcommittees to share with the leadership of the branches and the state associations the things they've been working on. That was one purpose. The second purpose was for those council members to hear and have interaction on those topics or other ideas on the articles that they had been assigned to work on. And basically unanimously from all the council members since these workshops concluded on Saturday, the sentiment has been that they thought it was very productive, but in particular, it was really helpful to them in the work that they are doing on their bargaining subcommittee to eventually draft proposals that we'll submit in collective bargaining. They thought it was a really, really important piece of feedback and sharing of ideas that's going to really help them as they continue in that process of bargaining preparation. So I don't think we had shared that on the podcast since Saturday, but I think it's fair to say that based on the feedback we've gotten from the branch and state presidents that were in attendance, as well as all the council members on these committees that conducted these workshops, that it was a really productive exercise that everyone got something out of. And that's exactly what we wanted to do.
So now let's move on to Sunday. Sunday was the rap session, if you will. And we all gathered in a room, all 1,500 of us, and you were up on the podium and the dais there, and you gave your State of the Union address. Do you want to talk about some of the topics and about your speech?
Sure. So there really were three main areas that we focused on. In this room, we have the entire leadership of our union at the branch level, the state level, the regional level, the national level. And as I told the group pretty early in my, after thanking people and introducing people and all that stuff, we spent a lot of time Saturday on really important stuff, digging into the collective bargaining process on certain articles. But what I intended to do that Sunday morning was focus on three major areas of priority and, frankly, challenge facing our union in the future. And as I told the group as well, these are very, very serious issues. So what I did is just laid out in a very factual, blunt manner, I think, three different things. Where we are in collective bargaining preparation, always at the top of our priority list. Focusing on, in this setting, the economic piece of bargaining, things to do with wages and benefits and the structure of the workforce, because they had covered everything else on Saturday. The second piece was all of the challenges and fights that we thankfully have been successful in 2025 against those that want to harm the Postal Service or letter carriers. It's been a very eventful year in terms of administrative action that was on the table from the White House and changing of leadership at the Postal Service and what we've seen with other federal employees. So we talked about what happened in 2025, but more than anything to educate us as to what we can expect going forward into next year. So that fight is the second thing. The third thing was in light of the Postal Service's releasing their financial results last week, which include a lot of information about money, yes, but also about mail volume and a number of other things. Just digging into the facts of that and putting some context with it of what we've seen the last few years to help us to understand where the Postal Service is today, but maybe even more importantly, looking forward into the future. Because a primary responsibility of ours as a union is to ensure that we have a place to work and, that our job security is directly tied to the success of the Postal Service. So we really went in depth about the different things that have impacted the Postal Service. Of course, reported a $9 billion loss, but we have to dig a little deeper as to why that is, and very quickly turn our focus into what is the path forward to sustainability for the Postal Service. And that's something, as we discussed yesterday, that's changed over the years. So three primary things: collective bargaining, prep, and what we look at going forward, focusing on the economic stuff, fighting those that try to attack us and try to destroy the Postal Service, as we've had to do a lot in 2025. And then finally, the state of the Postal Service now and going forward. And then, of course, we had, a good, I think, hour and a half or more of our branch leaders, coming to the microphone and offering feedback and questions and everything in between. So I think it was a productive day from my spot anyway.
Yeah, so I guess the question is now with our branch presidents here, what did you guys think about Brian's speech? What were your major takeaways? Tony, do you want to give us what your takeaways were from Brian's State of the Union?
Yes, thank you. Appreciated the way President Renfro you brought the fact-based information. Some people want to hear what sounds good, what they like to hear. It wasn't about that. You came with, this is where we are negotiating. This is what you expect. This is what the executive committee expects. So we can prepare our membership. It's going to be a slog of a negotiation. And I like the part where you told us upcoming at 2026, you're planning a National Day of Action. You want more involvement with our legislative affairs because we're going to have to get them involved. But you laid out the facts, where we are, and you gave us an update of the new postmaster, his what he may be proposing, what his ideas may be. We all can't say exactly what this man's going to do, but I love the way you put it out there as a fact-based information.
Amy, what did you think about the speech?
Yeah, I agree with Tony. The responses were much better this time. They're usually not so nice. Um, he gave us everything we needed to know. The economic part, I don't think the rank and file in its totality will ever be satisfied with what we get because the multitude of us don't think that we could ever be compensated for what we go through. And the fact that he could shine some light on where he's headed in that direction was very good, I think.
Kelli, is there anything from Brian's speech that the members really needed to hear?
The state of what the USPS is in. I mean, I had no idea that they weren't putting funding into the retirements. So that was to me very scary. And carriers need to understand in order to get pay raises and everything that they want, we have to have a service that is going to be around. And it was very eye-opening and quite frankly a little bit scary for me.
Chuck, what were your takeaways from the speech?
I have to agree with Kelli on hearing some of the things that we may not have heard before about what's going on with our employer. I do really appreciate that President Renfro gave us the facts, gave us what's happening with the Postal Service. We always hear these things, but we don't have a lot of the breakdown and the information about what's actually going on. And then, like Kelli said, when we hear that the Postal Service is having issues with funding the retirement, et cetera, when I'm probably about 6 years away from being eligible to retire myself, it's kind of a scary thought. We as carriers are always thinking about the economic portion, but we're not thinking about it as a whole. We're thinking about it as what we want for our income, what we want for a pay raise. Getting the facts about what that takes and how hard that is to achieve, I think was very important for us to hear.
Brian, after hearing our branch presidents that are on today talking, is there anything that you want to just add?
No, I think they're all spot on. And what Kelli and Chuck you guys just shared about the financial results. It's true. And as we'll talk about in future episodes, in some ways it's not a lot different than Post Service. It's no secret has struggled financially for, 15 plus years now. But as we talked about yesterday, I think the important pieces to share were, though the loss is about the same as it was last year, the fact that we've seen some significant shifts in things like our parcel volume. It's the first year in forever that it started to go down. Look, not that the sky is falling tomorrow and our retirement funds are still well funded. But when you consider all these things together and we start to look to try to map out the short and long term future, it's a continuously evolving situation that frankly is not getting any better. And, that was ultimately the purpose of it, is for you guys and all our branch leaders to understand, where we are, and you can't understand where you need to go unless we all understand where we are. So, yeah, I'd say the feedback is that I've had from a lot of people, of course, over the last day or so has been very similar, and it's encouraging to me that my goal, as I said, was to just, as these guys have said, share the factual information, and I think it was received for what it was intended to be, and that's factual because. Look, the leadership of the union, we have to talk about the things that are important, whether they're pleasant or not. And sometimes they're not pleasant, and that was the case with a lot of the things we have to talk about yesterday. And I think one thing that kind of stuck with me that came to mind, and I actually told the group yesterday as we were having discussion on one topic, is we as union representatives spend the vast, vast majority of our time at whether it's me as the president of the union or the other officers at headquarters or our NBAs and the folks in the regional offices or you guys at the branch level, we spend the vast majority of our time working to keep bad things from happening to members of our union, and trying to advance the things that are positive, such in collective bargaining. But there's so much that we have to do, whether it's contract enforcement, the work we do on Capitol Hill, that we are fighting folks that attack us, and therefore a lot of the things that the leadership has to discuss are not pleasant things. And but it's important that we are not just factual about it, but that we put those cards all on the table, and that we're blunt and that we're honest and we're raw in the conversation. And that's exactly what I think happened yesterday. And I think it was certainly was beneficial to me to hear from so many of our branch leaders, but I think it was probably a beneficial period of time from all the things I shared to what we heard from the branch presidents that were in attendance. I think we accomplished what we needed to accomplish yesterday morning.
So in that second half of the wrap session, we opened up the microphones, and the branch presidents could go to the mic and share their opinions and their ideas for the collective bargaining process, especially on the economic end of it. That lasted about 2 hours, if not a little bit more than that. And there were over 35 topics discussed. Just want to, I think just want to commend all the branch presidents for being professional, even if they didn't agree with what was being said or they had some friendly disagreements. I thought maybe we should have put a keyboard out in front of them so they felt more comfortable expressing, some of their ideas there. But just want to ask you, Brian, before we ask the presidents here, how did you think that open discussion went with our presidents?
I thought it went really well. I am fortunate to be able to spend a lot of time with our members in settings like that, where I share a lot of information and then, spend a lot of time answering their questions, whether that's at a regional training or a state convention or branch meeting. And that part of whatever event that's happening after I speak, hearing from my members is always my favorite part. Always, no matter what they say, even when the ones that might want to yell at me or, throw shoes at me like George W. Bush back in the day or whatever, it's still my favorite part because it's the most beneficial piece of it to me. And I thought yesterday, how many did you say? 35?
35, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly the number, but I knew there was a lot of people. I thought it was a great mix of people sharing thoughts on our priorities economically and collective bargaining, which is something I asked them to do yesterday morning. A mix of good questions and suggestions and thoughts related to all three of the main topics that I discussed yesterday. So I thought overall it was productive from my perspective, and I'm sure for the rest of the people in the room, they also get a lot out of hearing others come up to the mic and maybe sharing a thought or asking me a question and I answer. So I am curious about that. For you guys, the branch presidents that are with us, I'm curious what you took away from the actual wrap part of the conference when I opened up the mics yesterday. So Chuck, let's start with you. Anything stands out or you take away from being there during that portion?
Well, I mean, like I said, I've had a lot of opportunity to go to different functions, hear the feedback. Like you said, I think one of the most interesting parts is when the members get up and ask you questions and how you answer those. I really think the members were very respectful, very honest. To me, it was a really invaluable part to hear some ideas from other people, other size branches. We all come into it with our own perspective of things, but being from I guess, medium-sized branch, hearing the feedback from smaller branches or larger branches, it affects us all differently. We're all in the same goal, but we all have different things that we're concerned about. So hearing that is always very important to me as well. so that I can get a different perspective, and then hearing how, those questions are answered. So that's the biggest thing I took away from it.
Excellent. Let's do one more. Amy, what'd you think about the discussion portion yesterday morning?
I was really impressed. We actually got to hear what they had to say and your responses. A lot of times, as I said, they usually turn into something different. That was really eye opening. That means that everything that you said resonated well. And it didn't lead to, like I said, unfortunately, what it usually leads into. So we actually got to understand their perspective and your responses. So that was really good, actually.
Excellent. So now that we're recording this on Monday morning, and the wrap was yesterday morning, and we've had a little bit of time to think about. Tony, is there anything that thinking back now that came up during the wrap that you think would be important to to share with our members, or things that you would share with your members in Baltimore?
Well, yes, the rap session, I do feel like I get the opportunity to express not just my views, the views that I've been getting from my membership on things that's going on. I had an opportunity, it's a straightforward question, because the main thing coming out of my branch of, I guess, after economics, the discipline procedure and the delay of getting discipline resolved and compliance, that would be like 1 and 1A after economics. But we're able to get our opinions not only to the executive board, directly to our national president. I felt like that was accomplished. I got the answer, and I know going forward we can continue to, however we talk to our national officers. It's not always a pleasant conversation, but I'm going to get the facts. So I feel like that rap session, it does what it needs to do, and I look forward to future rap sessions or just engaging with our national officers.
Indeed. So one of the things that I always look forward to, whether it's a national rap session or convention or really any event, is just the opportunity to see a lot of people. And I know you guys do the same thing. And anytime we have an event like this, there's what happens within the workshops or within the rap sessions. But then there's also a lot of time there where you have the opportunity to naturally talk to other presidents from other locations about what's going on, and I'm sure you all have had some of those conversations over the last couple of days. So we're curious, in maybe some of those conversations you've had with fellow branch leaders, what were their thoughts about what happened over the weekend, about the rap session, just as a whole, Saturday and Sunday? Kelli?
Well, everyone I talked to, they said it was very, very informative. We're all extremely happy with the information that we got, whether we necessarily agree with everything. But everybody listened and we were taken very seriously. But the one thing I do have to say is I was very impressed on how professional everyone was at the actual wrap on Sunday. We've kind of lost ourselves, I think, in all the past contractual raises and stuff. And I think sitting down and talking to some presidents that were very upset with how the last contract went, they're starting to actually change their tune because they're listening, and it's good to actually have those communications and talk to one another and say, it's not always good to scream and yell. You get more with honey than you do vinegar. So it was nice that people weren't screaming at one another, and it feels like we're finally getting the camaraderie back. We don't all have to agree, but we do all need to support one another. So at the end, the NALC is what makes us strong. And
Very
that's what
good.
I took away from it.
So, Amy, kind of a similar question, but just talking to other folks that were there, and I'm sure lots of conversations about their experiences. Do you feel like, and based on conversations with others, do you think that the executive council members, whether it was on Saturday with what the different members did in the different workshops or what we did on Sunday, that the thoughts and the opinions and suggestions and that sort of thing from branch leaders were really heard, and the executive council is going to take that back and utilize it in our process.
Yes, actually, like I said, I'm relatively new. I've only been branch president 7 years, so I haven't had a lot of activity. However, the conversations that were had out in the hallways were a whole lot different this year than they've ever been, than I've heard them being. A lot of things that plague the larger branches, I don't have those issues. A lot of them, rather. Article 8, that's a different story. But listening to the people that I had the privilege of meeting throughout my tenure or whatever, they were a little bit more optimistic about the way we left things yesterday than I've heard them in a long time. So, and that's a really good thing. I don't know whose concept this was, but it was a very good idea. And you could tell by listening to the conversations from people.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
So Chuck, you get the maybe most pointed question here. I know you're someone that's been around a long time, and you've experienced lots of rounds of collective bargaining, and as we've talked about here, this wrap session was a little different. We tried to give a little more insight into kind of where we were in the preparation process, but now that we've gotten through that wrap session, what are your thoughts on what you would like to see as we head into negotiations early next year?
I really believe that the goal that was presented to us was very well rounded. It was something where you're taking everything that you're hearing from the membership, you're taking the things that the executive council has worked on, you're taking all of that to heart, and you really have. I'd like to see personally something that sets us up for the future. That's where, to me, the biggest challenge is with the new people. They are our future. Like you said, I've been around for a long time. I always try to think about the people coming behind us. We're not always going to be here. And setting those carriers up for success, having them be able to have what I've had my entire career, what I felt is good pay, good benefits, making sure that they have that. And I think that needs to be our biggest focus. And I believe what I heard this weekend is that is one of our biggest focus, is to get the CCAs, the PTFs, work towards that all career workforce. Work at the starting pay at the beginning. Those are the things that I'd like to see out of our next contract. But I think that the honesty that we got and how well-rounded everybody has thought at the executive council about this new contract, I think that's also important. You can't please everybody. There's no way that we can do that. But we have to find something that is going to do the best we can for all of our membership. But I think the focus really does need to be on the newer people. That's to me the biggest thing.
Excellent.
Okay, before we wrap up, I just want to ask you a couple questions, Brian. Like how
Sure.
are you and the executive council going to take what you heard from these branch presidents on this podcast and then also over the weekend and prioritize what we're going to do at the negotiation table?
Yeah, really good question, Eddie. I know we've talked on this podcast before, and a lot of our listeners have, heard me and others talk about this entire collective bargaining prep process that really started in earnest as far as the council members in early September. We've done a lot of stuff. They reviewed all sorts of information, convention resolutions, official bargaining positions. We've done polling. We've got surveys that'll be available here in the next few weeks for our members to fill out. We've had one rank and file committee come in for a week. We've got another one coming in January. This national wrap session, we had all our branch and state leaders together, was a really, really important piece of that preparation process because it was an opportunity, which I think both our council members and our branch leaders took full advantage of over the weekend to get a comprehensive understanding on both sides of, if you want to view it as sides in a workshop, of where priorities may have been. And then once those conversations happen, now our council members can come back. They meet at least once a week with their subcommittees, and their discussions over the next few weeks will almost certainly be centered around taking everything that they got from these workshops and reassessing, incorporating that into the topics that they have prioritized within the articles that they've been assigned. So I know they are all really excited about it. They were really happy with the feedback, almost eager to be able to get back together as a committee and start talking about and incorporating everything that they got in their workshops. As far as the economic portion, things to do with wages and benefits and so on. We don't have a subcommittee for that. We discussed that as an entire executive council. Our last few meetings, we've spent a few hours each meeting, including this week in Cleveland, as an executive council, talking in depth about the economic piece of bargaining and priorities and the process and all this stuff. Similarly to the subcommittees, the feedback we got after what I shared yesterday, both at the microphones, as well as just in, one-on-one conversations where, someone stops you in the hall and, hey, this is my thought on this, my thought on this. Just like the subcommittees at our next executive council meeting, the input of all those members, the branch leaders, is something that we will probably dedicate some time to talking just about that. And then as we pick back up in the conversation where we were, moving topic to topic to topic on the economic front, we'll be able to incorporate that. So I think it was an invaluable piece of this just entire preparation process. We're really happy that we were able to schedule it at this point in the preparation process. I think it was just right. And I think ultimately the members of NALC are going to benefit from all the work that was done over the weekend by our branch and state leaders.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you for having the wrap session, our executive council for their presentations and listening to that feedback. I want to thank our branch presidents that are here, that spent their morning with us talking about what happened at the wrap session. The branch presidents that were in Cleveland that did the work of the union, appreciate them. And I want to thank you for listening to this edition of the Fight Like Hell podcast. Please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode, and please share the podcast with our NALC brothers and sisters. You can follow the NALC on social media using Facebook, X, and Instagram. You can find our links on the accounts in the description below. Thanks for listening. May your steward be by your side, and may your union have your back. Thanks for listening. See you soon.